morning, everybody. I'm Mike Roy from RHR Real Estate. Thank you for coming to our Downsizing Your Home meeting. We are a local real estate company that's family-owned. It's my son and I. Ben and I run the company, and that's it. So if you want to talk to the boss, you talk to us. We've been doing downsizing seminars for about 1.5 years now, and we work as a team effort with attorneys, financial planners, and here comes Nina, thank goodness. All right, so if you want to take a seat, Nina, and we'll get going. So what we're going to do is give you an overview of the whole concept of downsizing, things that you need to kind of understand. There are many components to it, and it's very complicated. So what we do is, I'll give you an overview. We are a real estate company. We have a product that's called Fix It to List It. If your house needs renovations to get it ready for sale, we do all that. And the whole picture of what we do is when you come to us and you're not ready to sell yet, we'll guide you to professionals that are out there. So if it's helping with decluttering, or maybe there's a hoarding situation. If your family status is something that you have to think about, extended care, things like that. If you want to age in place, we can help you with that. So we're going to give you a whole overview, and I want you to feel free to ask questions, because the more questions you ask, the more we'll learn, both of us. All right, Nina, would you like to come up and give us an overview on some of the legal issues? Yeah. And I'd like to invite Nina Dowd. She is from Mountain, Deering, and
Dearborn and Whiting, yeah.
Dearborn and Whiting. Yep. So here's Nina, and I have a bunch of questions for her in case you don't have any.
You're coming up later. Thought we'd do a duet here.
No, you just go right up there. You're right there. Here you go, folks. You want to?
Probate and trust matters. Okay, so thanks, Mike, for that introduction. So I do estate planning, helping clients put together wills and trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare proxy. Hopefully these are familiar terms to you. And then the other part of what I do is I probate estates. Someone dies, the family comes to me, and I help the deceased's final affairs. And there can be a lot to clean up there. How do we pass title from someone who's dead to their heirs? And also, I'm a tax lawyer, because when someone passes away, you have to clean up all the tax issues, just as though they were living. So on the estate planning side, you need to look at what you own and then confirm how it's owned. And then ask yourself, well, when I pass away, where do I want this to go? So I like to start with a little pop quiz. Okay, just raise your hand if you think you know the answer. Let's say you own a bank account, a checking account, by yourself. You get the statement in the mail, it just has, Mary Smith and your mailing address. What's going to happen to that bank account when you die?
It'll freeze because nobody else its name is on it.
That's true, it will freeze, and that's why when someone dies, I get phone calls from usually the kids of parents freaking out. The account's frozen, and then you're right, that's a good segue. Now, let's say that we unfreeze the account and all that. Who's going to get that account?
The estate?
Correct. Yes, it will. Yep, it'll drop into the estate. Now, have they been to this talk before, Mike? Have they been to this talk?
No.
Because they're doing really well. Okay. I'm having deja vu. Did I do this talk before? Okay. Now it's in the estate. The estate is going to look to the left and the right and say, okay, is there a will? Did the person leave a will before they died? If the answer is yes, I think this is going in and out. They can hear me. If the answer is yes, we take out the will and we follow what it says. It's going to be a recipe. It's going to say, when I die, anything that comes in here, a bank account, whatever was frozen and dropped into my estate, pass it to these people. Sometimes it can say, but not these people. You can exclude people, and usually I'm the poor person who has to break that news to someone. Now, same bank account. And by the way, what I explained is the probate process, getting it through the will and all that. It can take time. Same bank account, but you and someone else own it. Maybe it's your sibling, or very frequently married couples own an account jointly. Now, one of them dies. What's going to happen to that account? Who gets it?
The other one, survivor.
That's right. The survivor. And then when the survivor dies, what now?
Goes into the trust.
Exactly. A trust or a will or what have you.
Hopefully
Okay.
it went into your 5-year trust that you started 5 years ago.
Exactly.
I know.
Because that's the major issue with some of
I
this
know.
stuff. Yeah.
And these are good basics. So anything you own jointly with somebody is going to pass to the survivor. And I've run into issues where some clients may not know that, and maybe they're older, they're widowed, and they put their daughter Sally as a joint owner on the account. Because Sally's very good with finances, and if I can no longer, I'm not sick of writing checks, my daughter Sally will do it for me. And if I need money, she just goes to the bank and gets access to it, that's fine. But I want that account to go to all my kids, Jimmy, John, and Ralph. Well, you guys could probably tell her the bad news that when she dies, it's going to go right to Sally, all that money, the joint owner. It's not going to go to her estate and through the will where she named the 4 kids equally. So something to be cognizant about. Life insurance policies, or does anyone in here have a retirement account, like an IRA, 401k, 403b? You know, on those, you can do what so that at your death it goes straight to somebody that you name. You can name a beneficiary.
Does it also just dump into your, the whole thing, and then it's divided among your surviving will people?
No, if you name a beneficiary, and you can name more than one, you
But
can,
if you don't,
if you don't, then you're right, it goes
right into
back
you.
into the estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that
Yeah.
pose problems with taxes if they get money like that? Can they divert taxes, or maybe that's your bill?
So, on an IRA, if you inherit a retirement account, an IRA, 401k, 403b, 457, et cetera, and you're a non-spouse, you have to take that money out within 10 years. So if your children inherit that money, they have 10 years to take that money out. If they don't take that money out within 10 years, they're penalized. When they take that money out, they will be taxed on it. Because IRA money, retirement money has never been taxed. It came out of your paycheck, or you put it in and got to write your taxes off of it. It's grown without any taxes, and then you have it, and Uncle Sam didn't charge you any taxes because you told him you were gonna use it for retirement. Which is why some of you at 70 and a half, but now they've changed it at 72, then they changed it to 73, cut 20, 35, and 75. With the required minimum distribution, that's Uncle Sam telling you, you need to start taking the money out of your retirement account because they want their taxes. When a non-spouse inherits that money, they need to get it out within 10 years because Uncle Sam wants his taxes. So there is no way to circumvent that, Mike. You have to pay taxes on this money eventually. Either you're going to or your heirs are. On the other hand, with the non-qualified, the non-retirement stuff, I'm gonna leave that to the tax lawyer.
There are definitely things you can do, and Christina, maybe not with like the retirement accounts,
Right.
but like if you die living in Massachusetts and you own at least $1 million of assets, they're gonna whack your estate with a one-time tax. If you have 2 million, then the tax is $150,000 that has to be paid. before the term of a pregnancy. They give you 9 months from the date of death. You can extend it, but now with that, we call that an estate tax. There's ways we can minimize that and defer it, but that's usually with married couples. And I always tell people, if you're married and you have kind of a bad day with your spouse, just remind yourself that the government loves married people and will give you a lot of benefits. It's so true. Tax, estate planning, creditor protection. We have counseled that couple that have been together for 30 years and not married. And once I tell them the benefits, they have gotten engaged and been married. That's how much people care about that.
Now, don't be telling that to my girlfriend.
Well, this is recorded, so I don't know if it's going to land on Facebook or something.
So,
but-
I guess the thing that we want to project here is being prepared. With some of your, has everybody looked at the 5-year look-back plan? All right, so in Massachusetts, with Medicare, there's a 5-year look-back for your debts, and that's very important. So, Nina, yeah, I think you should. Nina can talk to you about that, and Christina, whether you use us or not, you've got to talk to people now because things have changed, laws have changed, rules have changed. The IRS is changing all the time. So if you want to protect your assets as much as you can, you know, this is what we're trying to say. We're, you know, if you work with us, we're a team. We're going to get the people to you, you know. So yeah, why don't you go on a 5-year look back?
Yeah, the Medicaid, okay. Here's a situation that we see sometimes. Married couple, let's say, and I like to throw the husbands into the nursing home first because it's usually what happens in my scenarios. Okay.
You're outnumbered.
He's going in. He's going in. The wife can't take care of him anymore. It's too much. The bathing, the daily living, she's tried, can't do it. He's going in. Next thing you know, the nursing home bill is at least $10,000, probably around this area. Maybe it's a little more, like 15. And they do a daily rate of like $400. I always said it's cheaper to stay at the Ritz-Carlton, and that's what I plan on doing. Because they're so expensive at the nursing home. That's right. Okay. Well, they're running out of money. So now what? You can apply for Mass Health to see if they'll pick up the nursing home tab. And you fill out there are people who fill out the applications for you, okay? The family should not be doing this application alone, because there's some questions that can be answered that's in your favor. Because they don't want you getting eligible for Mass Health, okay? And they say, well, you can't have more than $2,000 in your pocket if you want Mass Health to cover all this. Now, what did I say about married people? There's a lot of benefits. But if you've got a healthy spouse at home, we're going to let you, person in the nursing home, transfer whatever you own jointly or by yourself, give it to your spouse at home, up to a limit though. I think it's now $137,000 of assets. Another piece of good news, the house where they live, as MC Hammer said, can't touch this. That home is protected. Why? Because there's a spouse living there. So they'll let you keep the house. They're not even counting the value of the home. But everything over that, life insurance, retirement, they make you break into them, cash out all that, pay the taxes, transfer it to the healthy spouse. If we do all that and there's still more money over that amount, then there's things we can do. Mass Health says, you know what, turn it into an income stream and we'll leave you alone. So we go out, there are annuities where you convert, let's say, a life insurance policy into an annuity and it just pays the spouse at home back the money over 5 years or something. Okay? Now, you can run into, and then you've got to be down to $2,000. Then the person's eligible in Mass Health. If you're single, it's a much harder thing. If you own real estate, Yeah, it's, Mass Health will put a lien on the property, and then at your death, they will
Take it.
say, well, yeah, we want to pay ourselves back. We want to reimburse ourselves.
Would they just reimburse for the amount that they had paid out, and the rest of it will go to your estate?
Correct. They'll
Okay.
reimburse them, but oftentimes, depending on how long you've been in a nursing home, could be the whole shebang. Because as I said, at least 10K a month.
Now, what if you have it in a trust, though?
Okay, now good segue. So what we've been doing is saying to people, if you really want to preserve real estate like this, here's what you got to do. You should put it into a trust, a special kind of trust, a trust that it's called irrevocable. You can't change what it says. You can't get rid of it, you as the person setting it up. And you can transfer real estate to it or any other asset you want into it and pray that you don't need to apply to Mass Health for 5 years. Because as Mike said, there's this 5-year look back. What is that? When you're applying for Mass Health, they ask you for 5 years worth of bank statements, and they will look at the registry of deeds online, which anyone can do. I can do that anyone in this room can do that. And they're looking to see, did this person give away a house? Because I can see their name on the deed. Why do they care about that? Well, they're saying, if you purposefully are making yourself poor by giving away money and giving away your house to people, and you're doing that on purpose to make yourself destitute, why on earth should we pick up this tab? So they look back 5 years. A trust, when you're putting something into a trust, that you're giving it away to the trust. So that's a transfer that falls within the 5-year rule. We are following the law constantly on this.
I just have a little aside. I did a loan for a woman, her daughter worked
Oh, yeah.
for the, I don't think she worked for Mass Health, but she worked with people that are in that situation. And she said it has a long talon that will come out and get whatever you have. They go after it. So you've got to protect yourself.
Now, let's say you gave away that house within this period of time, before the 5 years is up. Okay, I gave it to my nephew. They will go after him now? If,
No, if you're past that 5-year,
but if you're not?
oh, if you're not, what they will say to you is, well, auntie, go to your nephew and say he's got to sign a deed to give it back to you. And then worse.
What if you're dead?
Well, if you, well, that's an important factor.
I mean, this is like after the fact.
But then, if you're dead, it wouldn't really matter because by that point in time, you wouldn't have become eligible for Mass Health in the first place if you
Why
didn't make
not?
the 5-year look-back period.
Because you hadn't
Be-
completed your 5 years.
Correct. So it wouldn't really matter in that
You
scenario.
can't apply to Mass Health. You can, but they're gonna deny you.
Right.
If you haven't gotten if you don't have, if, let's say I need to apply to Mass Health tomorrow. So I go to Nina and I'm like, Nina, get all my assets out of my name,
Right.
right? And we go apply to Mass Health. Mass Health's gonna be like, there's assets in your name yesterday. Come back in 4 years.
Right.
Come back in 4 years and 364
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
So it doesn't, so if you pass away, your nephew already has it, there's no money to pay back to Mass Health because Mass Health didn't give you any money. So you don't, so essentially, you don't want to start giving your assets away when you're going into the nursing home. You need to pre-think this. I have a client, husband and wife, he was diagnosed with early Alzheimer's 2 years ago. So he's living at home, he's still fine, and he's still trading on a stock portfolio. He is still completely mentally aware right now. But they know at some point, he is not going to be. So we worked with his estate planning attorney, and everything's out of his name as of today, except for an annuity, because we could turn that into income, but everything else is out of his name. So I'm guessing in about 6 years, Bill's gonna end up in a nursing home. They're gonna look back on that application, going back 5 years, there's nothing in Bill's name over those 5 years. So he'll get his Mass Health right away. If for some reason something happens and bill goes downhill next year, and it's only been 3 years, they're gonna look back and they're gonna say, there were assets. You are going to have to private pay for 2 more years. And then you can reapply. So the way your question was asked, your nephew's never gonna get pulled back because you didn't get any mass help at that point.
I have another situation that was personal to me. It's one of my friends, and her father has Alzheimer's. And he was living at the home. It was moderate, probably stage 2. I don't know what the stages are, but let's say stage 2. Recently, he was scared at night. He didn't recognize his wife, and he attacked her. And now he's in a nursing home. And now they're scrambling to move the money around. So I guess there's ways to do that too, but it's much more complicated. But if it's your spouse, I guess there's some, they have spousal things. So again, planning is what we're talking about.
If you can avoid, in Christina's example, if you can avoid, that's a couple that when he goes in, there's going to be a lot less stress with that family. You're already dealing with someone in a nursing home, but because of the planning, it's going to be pretty swift and easy, I think.
And then you have also the opportunity to buy long-term care insurance. And long-term care insurance helps pay for long-term care. It doesn't mean it's paying for a nursing home. It can also pay for a home health aide to come in the house and take care of you. If, I can't lift my spouse, I can't bathe him, someone can come in. And I usually recommend buying a 5-year policy because now you are paying with your health care. So all of a sudden I find out something happens to my husband and I can't take care of him anymore and he's going into a nursing home. Well, I have my long-term care policy that starts paying. Now I go see Nina, get everything out of our names and we dump it all into trust and everything. Long-term care policy runs out, will apply for mass health, they turn around and go, yep, nothing's in your name, you're good to go. So that's why people also have these long-term care policies. Traditional long-term care policies, no one really buys those anymore because they're crazy expensive and they have a ton of rate increases. But what people are buying now are hybrid long-term care policies. They're life insurance and long-term care at the same time. So if you don't get to use it because you, by God's will, went to sleep one night and you didn't get up, and you didn't need long-term care, someone's gonna get a death benefit. So they kind of give you the best of both worlds. And those are other ways, it's part of the whole planning process on what you want to look at. Because the last person you want to get your money is the government. And you want to try to preserve it for generations after generations. And even if you're, another example, even if you're single, and you think, well, I don't care, I don't have to leave the money to anybody, why would I bother doing this? Well, I have a gentleman who's single, never been married, and we had sold him long-term care insurance, and he has Parkinson's. And now that he's in the nursing home, his sister can actually spend her time caring for him, not figuring out how she's gonna pay for the nursing home. So it's just, it's by preparing and planning and working with an estate planning attorney, a financial advisor, and even real estate agents, because when we talk about somebody's estate and how much you're worth, it's not what your bank account and your retirement accounts are worth, your home is also part of your estate. So if you think, I'm nowhere near that $1 million mark, I only have, $400,000 in the bank, well, guess what? Today's real estate age, there's a very good chance your house might be worth over $600,000.
It's easy in Massachusetts.
And, so if you downsize and now you have that in income, it's easier to get it into trust and plan it that way and stuff. So it's another reason why you want to think about maybe downsizing.
Well, I don't want to take up Christina's spotlight here, so my time is close to up, but I will have cards. I can consult with you and talk with you, and I have no problem doing that. If you have questions, come and see me after, and that's it. Thanks for being good students. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. Yep. And now we're going to bring up Christine. She's already...
Sorry, Christina.
So I'm Christina Lashua. I am financial advisor. I work with Edward Jones Investments. My office is in Leominster. There's a couple offices in Littleton. You've probably seen them around. And what I can do is, again, working with Nina and Mike as a team, figuring out the best places. And then the other thing is when you're thinking about downsizing, oh, great, here's this money. I bought my house 40 years ago. I don't have a mortgage. I get all this money. Well, you need to live somewhere. So if you do sell your house, you can't just be like, now I have $500,000, I'm great. Well, you need to buy something. And that's something I can work with you on and saying, Well, do we take that and do we spend 300,000 of it on a condo and you don't have a mortgage and you still have $200,000? Or do you rent something and say, okay, well, what if I rent this for however long, what's going to be better for my financial situation, what's going to be better for potentially passing the money on to my heirs, et cetera. I had a gentleman who, he lost his wife, unfortunately. They have a house up here, they have a house in Florida. He decided last summer, at the height of the real estate market, I am never going to get what I could get for my house today. My kids don't want the house, my kids want the money. I'm going to sell the house. I'm going to move into a condo because I own, or an apartment. He rents an apartment because I'm in Florida 7 months out of the year anyways. Now I can just walk out of my apartment and lock the door. And we ran the numbers and said, yeah, it makes a lot of fiscal sense for you to do that because of these reasons. And then we took that lump of money and we invested it. We made all of his children beneficiaries on it.
Yep.
So that now, the beautiful thing about making beneficiaries on retirement accounts and even non-retirement accounts is you won't get tied up in probate. And that money gets cleared up for those kids right away, especially if they're going to sell mom and dad's house, but they need money to kind of get it updated, et cetera. If they're able to have their hands on that retirement money or their hands on some other money, even the bank account, they have access to it. If it gets tied up in probate, it could take months before they get that money. So that's why I always recommend making sure you know how people can get their hands on money quickly. It doesn't matter who you name as a beneficiary. I always say that. Whoever you want to get your money, gets your money. Just make sure you know who it is. We do every year a beneficiary check with our clients because there's stories where people, before they got married, they had their sibling on as their beneficiary. Well, then they never changed it. It never dawned on them to change it. Married for 30 years, sibling doesn't get along with spouse, they pass away, that money goes to the sibling, not to the spouse. Because whatever that beneficiary says, even if the will says something else, a named beneficiary supersedes anything. So we always say make sure you know who the named beneficiaries are on everything. But, the next question is, well, what's going on with the market? Why would I invest my money right now? I watched everything go down last year. So the markets go up and down. They don't go straight up. They never have, they never will be. I've been doing this since 1997, so I went through the tech wreck. We had the extreme exuberance of anything that had .com after it was making money in 2000, and then the bottom fell out. And then everything recovered, and then we had the financial crisis in 08. And that was when people were telling me, you know what, why would I have my money? The stock market's going to zero, it's going to crash, we're never going to have any money again, and the whole world's changing. And I told them very simply, well, if you're correct, and I'm wrong that the stock market's going to come back, your money under your mattress or the money still sitting in the stock market is going to be equally worthless. So let's at least keep it in the market. And then we essentially saw the market go straight up from 2008 to 2022, barring the COVID dip of 6 weeks of extreme disruption. And then last year we saw it again. And last year was even more unique because everybody says put your money in bonds. Bonds are safe. Bonds provide diversification. Well, not only was the stock market down, the bond market was down. And everybody talks about a 60% equity and a 60% bond portfolio is gold and you're never going to lose money. Well, that was down 15% last year. So guess what? You did lose money. But if one bad year in the stock market ruined your retirement plan, you didn't have a very good plan to begin with. When I sit with someone and I build their portfolio, we know this is going to happen. Downturns are normal. They're expected to happen. And I make sure I go through risk tolerances with people and understand what's your pain point and what do we need to do to get you through your retirement? Because you don't need to make 22% to keep up with the stock market. Everybody has their own portfolio in this magic number. And as long as we average that long term, you're where you should be. And you look at all of that and say, okay, but what is my goal on this money? This is money I want to use for the next 3 years to pay my living expenses. Well, then you shouldn't be in the stock market anyways. This is money I want to leave to my grandkids. Well, then it doesn't matter what it did yesterday because your grandkids aren't going to touch it for so long anyways. So that's when you work with a financial professional like me and figure out what's the purpose of this money and what's your risk tolerance. And then people say, well, interest rates. No one's going to buy a house now. Interest rates are over 6%. Well, interest rates are predicted to start coming down by the end of this year or early next year. And I'm sure Mike and Ben could talk about this, that even though a 30-year mortgage went from 4.5% to 6%, on a $500,000 house, it's not that much of a monthly difference in someone's payment. And if someone can't afford that house because interest rates went up 1.5 points, they probably shouldn't have been looking at that house in the first place. So I wouldn't be concerned saying, did I miss the boat on selling my house? The real estate market's over. I'm not going to make any money. It's going to crash. That is not true. Houses are only staying on the market for a week or so, as long as they're priced right and in the right area. So that's where you work with Mike and Ben to figure out, okay, and you're going to go through the
Yep.
fix it to list it program and what doesn't make sense. But the way you would work with somebody like me is, Mike and Ben think I'm going to get X amount for my house. What do I do with that? That's where you sit down and we figure out, okay, how much are you going to spend to live? What are your expenses? What do we do with this money? What is your goal of this money? And it might simply be like, hey, you know what? I can get you 4.5% in a 1-year CD. Dump it in CDs for now. Or you want to take some risks? Let's do this. You got to pay rent. Let's figure out how to put this aside. We need to start thinking about protecting stuff from a nursing home because you see something. That's where we talk about, okay, what's the 5-year plan? What's the look back? Do we make an irrevocable trust? Because you can take your brokerage account, not your retirement accounts. Because if you take your retirement account and try to put it in an irrevocable trust, you have to actually sell out of it, pay taxes on all of it, and put it in the trust. Not necessarily the best idea, but maybe you have to. But everything else you want to think about, okay, what is our plan?
Well, for 1 second.
Yes.
One other thing that Christina's gonna do is she'll forecast. So if your term, if you're looking at a 5-year term, 10-year term, she can forecast what she thinks you're gonna do, so it's really valuable.
So I have just a brochure about your portfolio and talking about taxes, but all my contact information's on there, so I'll make sure everybody gets those as well. If you don't want to drive all the way out to Leominster, any local Edward Jones office can also work with you. So we are, a little bit about Edward Jones, we are not like branches of a bank. We are all our own independent offices. We're all Edward Jones employees, but you can't walk into my office and if you have an account in Lunenburg and say, hey, Christina, can you look up on my account? I can't. That being said, I do have many clients who go to Florida and deposit checks or sign paperwork there because the Florida offices are used to snowbirds coming and visiting them. But the Littleton advisors are very competent, so if you don't want to have to drive far, whatever town.
Is that Alan Bell?
Alan, yep.
Okay, we're
Yep.
good.
Okay, you know Alan, all right, you're good, yes. Alan, and then there's also Marshall Ben, but yeah, Alan's awesome, so. Alan DJ'd my wedding, fun fact. Yeah, that's that. If you have any questions or any other Edward Jones office or any other financial advisor you work with can help you guys out too, so.
And we're gonna be giving you their information, so if you have any questions too while we're reading it. So, to sell or not to sell your house. This is actually gonna be another meeting that we're gonna do in full, talking about aging in place, talking about buying another place, or even home sharing. These are all things that are coming up now that people haven't been doing, but because the housing market is so tight, and some of the family members, the younger members, can't find a house or can't afford it, some of this stuff is pretty interesting, So whether to sell or not, it's the home maintenance. How much of the maintenance is a burden? Does it cost you a lot of money? The finances are a concern, make it difficult to keep the home. A major life event has occurred which forces you to consider a move. Are you aging and you want to be closer to adult children? Are there services around? Those are all things you think about when you're downsizing. Recently had a woman who has gone blind. Unfortunately, her father's passed away. Her husband's passed away. And she wants to stay in her house. So we met with her and we talked about different options of housing. And so she needs about $40,000 to get her home safe for her to move, stay there. So we went over and looked at it. We had a couple contractors come out and tell us, the floor heights and the door handles. Like instead of having a round handle, they have a lever. All these things that you don't really think about, but they have to be done in order to be safe. So what we came up with for her, she couldn't afford to do that. So her best scenario was a reverse mortgage, okay? So she can get X amount of dollars out. She has an option to either pay or not pay. And she's in her 80s, so, her span of life, they calculate that out. So that's something I was gonna have Christina look at and give me, the numbers of where she'd feel safe. So things like that we do look at. But as a real estate company, if you're ready to sell, talk to your family. That's the most important. If you have family, in most situations, if you have 3 siblings, they're all gonna have different views. They all want different things, and they want different things from you. They have their own agendas. Hopefully yours is the top priority. So what I say is act as a team with with your sibling, I mean, your younger children. Because if you work as a team, then nobody's agenda goes ahead. It's all about you. So that's very important.
I'm sorry, I've got to leave.
Oh, sorry. Take a piece of pizza.
Sorry.
Okay. Then there's tax consequences for a home, sale of a home. Not if it's your primary residence and it's below a certain number in Massachusetts. What's that number?
No, it's like 450 in capital gains or 350 in capital gains.
Yeah, so you mean, if you're over that, then you have to worry about that. And who else may be acting on your behalf? So again, if you have somebody helping you out and they have a power of attorney in case something happens, we have to know that. So those are all things to plan on. Okay, so we talked about legal matters, financial matters. This is where we come in. Pricing, the market's still insanely hot. It's not as much as it was 6 months ago, but if your house is in decent condition, it's gonna sell, because I think there was 5 or...
I'll tell them that.
Oh, he's gonna tell you, he's got the market conditions. Prepping your home, we specialize in that, where we can have somebody come in and stage it for you, rearrange it, maybe not even get different furniture, just use what you have, move it around, clean it out, do all those sorts of things for you. The selling process has been very, very quick. There's still people that are coming in with full price offers, cash, things like that. We are starting to see some other financing come in, So what we do as real estate brokers is we come in and we look at every offer that comes in, and we will tell you best offer, second best offer, third best offer, depending on price, condition, terms. Now, you may have a different agenda. It might be somebody's neighbor, somebody's daughter that you knew and may want to buy your house. Well, you can tell us, hey, I want that one. And we go with it. You're the boss. You tell us what to do. All we do is guide you. And finding a new home, well, that is an exciting adventure, because we're going to have another meeting on where you can find another house. Will you go to housing, senior housing, over 65, over 55? Are you moving out of state? We can help you with that. I'm a senior real estate specialist, so if you want to move to Florida, in a town in Florida, I will get somebody down there that can take care of you, and they'll be a senior real estate specialist. So they'll know what you need for your wants and needs. Where are we now? Oh, all right. Call and get a free home evaluation. Yeah, we do that. Everything you do with us, all you have to do is give us a call. We'll come in, no obligation to you. We're not obligated to do anything, and we'll lay out a plan for you. That's the most important thing we do. And again, with all this, that's what we're doing. We're offering you a full service of a plan. The scope of work, this is the Fix It to List It program that we developed. So if your house needs a little bit of work, hopefully your house is the White House, not the other house. But you may have owned your home for a long time, and there are some things that you just lived with, So we'll come in and say, maybe that roof has to be repaired. That's an important issue. You may think the color of the wall is an issue, but sometimes it's not, So we'll tell you what's happening in the market now and what people want to see. Go ahead.
Got a question. As far as if you sell your house and it's actually in your will, do you have to do a new will?
I think every change you might have to read.
Not, it depends. I mean, if you wanted to give that specific property to somebody, then you should. But
Well, I'm leaving my property, etc., to my 3 siblings if they all survive.
Mhm.
Now, let's say I decide I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to go into an extended care, an
Sure.
over 55 community. Now And yes, you will put some money into it, and that will come back. But now that you had the house in the will, do you have to change the will?
I would, but the worst case scenario is they just don't get that house, since it's gone, you know?
Okay,
Right, just because it's in your will, it's not, you're not obligated to give it to them, you know.
okay,
That-
No one's gonna go grab it from whoever you
Yeah.
sold it
Right,
to.
right.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so with our fixed to listed program, we will go out to your house and we'll evaluate what we think has to be done. Now, we'll give you a scope of work, okay? And that will be a list of items that we looked at. And we'll have our contractors, and our contractors are people that we use with we used to flip houses. We were Roy's Home Rehab. And in 2019, we started the real estate company, and that's where we're focusing our interest now. So these contractors are people we've used over 10 years. And, you know, they come out, they'll give you a fair price. So if you need some plumbing done, you're not gonna call on the internet or Facebook and get a $1,000 bill, you know? Hopefully, we get it like half or a third or whatever, if they're good guys. I have my smoke detector electrician, that's very reasonable. So that's a big advantage that we can offer you. And all these guys are great. They're like my age, they're getting ready to retire, you know. Not all of them, but some.
And I just want to interject that. We offer that as a service. We don't get anything off the top from them. It's just the benefit of working with us. We've vetted these different contractors that we've worked with that we trust. We don't get a percentage off of that. It's just the service that we provide to our potential customers to get their house to the next level. So we can sell.
Yeah, because the contractors are insane now. Some of the prices that they're charging are just outrageous.
And getting someone to call you back is almost, just as difficult. So they trust us. We give them good business. We give them good leads. So we just refer them to you.
So basically, when we do that, it can be a little issue, it can be a big issue. You know, it could be a porch roof that has to be replaced or should be replaced because it's leaking, or it could be a septic system. We have people from landscapers to excavators that can help you out. So that's what we do. Then when you're ready to, go ahead, ready? Then when you're ready to list, you list and we'll get you the most money. And we negotiate for you as well as we can. Our interest is totally your interest. We're a small company again, so we need your business. So we cherish you as a client and we will take care of you. Like you're our mother. My mother's 91, so it's funny. I thought it was funny. So how to clear clutter. This is going to be another meeting that we're going to have in depth, but there's 4 basic ideas. There's trash in your home, there's things you want to donate or sell, there's rehoming, and then there's the essential stuff you're going to keep. So this can be a year-long process, a 5-year process, a 10-year process. We have one woman that we started about a year and a half, and we're just going to go list the house tomorrow, so that's exciting for us. But, trash is trash. I mean, if you have trash, you've got to get rid of it. It's just moving it out. But the donate and sell is very interesting because I try to get, if you have younger people involved in the family, like a niece and nephew, a grandchild that's good on the computer, Facebook Marketplace is a great way to go. Then you have, Craigslist and all that stuff. But you got to be careful with those because you don't want somebody coming to your house. You want a third party, where they would be more apt to. And I'm not saying you're not, good with computers, but you get a kid in there and he's selling your dining room set. Let them handle it. I don't advise you to have these people off the internet coming to your house. There's a lot of problems, out there. But so we talk about all that. We'd find out what you have in your family, how your siblings or how your children are going to handle things, and we'll work with the whole family. Okay, so rehoming, of course, is just rehoming stuff. We'll go into all of this. We have another meeting coming up that I highly recommend you come to, and we will go into specifics on that. Okay? I am a senior real estate specialist, and I personally, like I told you, my mother is 91 years old, and I get every one of those calls from the National Police Association, and I tell them no. But there are some things that they sound legitimate. My mother just recently got a call as I was on the road, and she called Ben up. She goes, what happened to your father? So the woman, the person called up and said, your son's in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a concussion.
Oh, yeah.
She's a nervous wreck, you know, so I'm driving on a road where I didn't have service, so she has a voicemail to me, but I didn't get it. She calls him up, all of a sudden he's calling me up saying, what's the matter? So what are you talking about? And, you know, I had to call my mother back, and she did a good job, though. She asked them, where are you calling from? They said Connecticut, and you know, she goes, that's not my son.
Well, the guy actually pretended to be him and said I sound different because I was in a car accident and I broke my nose.
Oh
That's
my
a big
God.
scam.
Yeah, and so
Like a
she
speed
was, you know, 91, but she was with it enough to say, this is not quite right. Called him, he didn't answer, so she called me, and, you know, we kind of worked it out, but, you know,
Oh,
they
they're out
pray.
there.
Yeah, it's
They prey on the
ridiculous
elderly.
how many
I
things.
got one 2 days ago, so it's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one more side story that my girlfriend's up in Vermont, and she does antique stuff. And so she was hired to do this house in Vermont, and the woman had paid over $50,000 because they said it was the IRS, and she actually went to the bank, drafted a check to them, sent it, no way to get it back. Her daughter found out, and she moved her down to Florida right away because it's just, you know, the scams are out there, and unfortunately, you know, we have to deal with them every day. But let's go back to selling your house. So a senior move specialist is someone that will come in, pack your boxes with you, arrange your kitchen, you know, pack things up for trash. We had a woman in Leominster. She had a house that was nice in North Leominster, and she wanted to sell her house. She came to one of these meetings, she said, I want to sell my house. I didn't go over first, Ben went over. So he goes over and tell him what happened.
So I go over, she's a very pleasant woman, and her first floor is very neat and organized and everything like that. So as I'm touring the house and she's touring me through, well, one of the bedrooms is upstairs. And she said, but I can't let you upstairs. And I said, well, I gotta kind of know what I'm working with, the condition of the house. She said, I just can't do it, I'm too embarrassed. It was a hoarding situation, but it was a very neat hoarding situation. She would buy brand new clothes, and all the tags were still on it, and just stack them everywhere. You know, stuff that she had planned on wearing and just never got to, but never organized it or whatever. And it was the second bedroom. She wasn't living up there, but she basically became a catch-all for all these brand new clothes and piles of brand new clothes. So what we suggested is our senior move specialist come over. She went over and helped her work through all the clutter, all the different clothes, helped what she was going to donate, what she was going to sell. Really, in 3 days' time, really helped her pack her addiction up into these boxes and organize everything. So when it was time to move, a month and a half later, it was just an easy transition.
Right, so she had a storage unit, and that she was moving down to see her son in Florida. So they actually took she didn't throw anything away. She put it all in the containers and moved it to Florida, which is her, you know, her prerogative. You know, she can keep things in storage and go through them later. But we had the house painter come in, had the landscaper come in, perfect, and, you know, the house sold. So it works very well. Okay. Well, that's the one we just went through, didn't we? Oh, no, that's,
You touched upon it. You're a senior real estate specialist, so you can
yeah,
coordinate.
okay. So we'll set priorities, we'll map out a plan, and evaluate renovations. So, again, this goes with the Fix It to List It program. If your house is in need of something, we will go in and give you a list of things that we think would be what you should or could do. You're the boss. If you say, I'm not doing that, fine. Again, we just did a house where the gentleman said it was a two-family investment property, and I said, you know, if you spend $3 to clean it out, because there was a lot of stuff, I said, you'll make 20. You know, I mean, that was my advice. Never cleaned it out, so, you know, that's what happened. We suggest resources, which we have. We have all the resources that you need, and we vet these people. You're not gonna be somebody that you won't trust. If they do something and we find out, we'll cut them off the list because we don't, you know, we want good people for you. We have staging, design people, again, that's the same thing with she's a real estate specialist, she'll do all that stuff. All right?
So I'm gonna do a market update.
All right, now Ben's gonna give you the market.
So as Christina was alluding to earlier, I think a big fear is, you know, potential recession, and is the price of my home gonna bottom out this year, next year? Is that looming? I'm here to tell you that's not gonna happen in this area. It's just a numbers game, right? It's supply and demand. Yes, we've seen interest rates rise to 7%, and recently they actually just ticked below 6%, and they're kind of hovering just above 6% right now. So that's higher than a couple of years ago, which was 3%. However, you know, that's not going to affect it. It's just supply and demand. There's so few houses, and I have some graphs that kind of tell you that. It might be hard to see from here. I should have made it a little bit bigger. But basically what this graph is saying, so in 2008, when the bubble crashed or whatever, we had that peak of 10 million homes for sale in 2000, 10 million point 4 homes for sale. Right now, last year, there's 2.7 million homes for sale. So we're at a huge deficit, and there's a huge pool of buyers that want to buy homes. There's just no inventory out there. So that's, even though the interest rates have risen, the demand is still there because there's no homes on the market. So you will still get top dollar right now if you sell your home. And I forecast this within the next couple months, and we're assuming in the middle of the summer, sometime around, the rates will go back down to 5.5 or so. So that's a lot more digestible for people. So that's all this graph is saying, is basically the midpoint of average home for sales over the last 30 years or so has been about 4.5 to 5 million homes for sale every year. And this is national, okay? So we're nowhere near even the midpoint. We're well below that, where we sat at 2.7 last year, okay? So next slide. So again, these are the market experts. So Realtor.com, Bank of America, Freddie Mac, Morgan Stanley, Moody's Analytics. These are the estimated, this is what they estimated for this year, 2023, of shortage of homes in America, right? So Realtor.com estimates that we are 5.2 million homes short of where we need to be. So they have a number where there's supply and demand, right? And ultimately, we want to get to an equal number. That creates a good equilibrium, but we are so far from that in America right now. And in the Northeast, specifically the desirable areas like Littleton, Acton, Westford, where you have good school systems, the numbers are even more drastic there. So you skipped ahead a little bit, but no, that's fine. So this is what I was saying. So home prices forecasted in 2023, these are what the experts has said. Some say, like Realtor.com says, that it's going to appreciate 5.4% in 2023. You know, National Association of Realtors say it's going to stay even, only appreciate about 0.3. Freddie Mac says it's going to depreciate 0.2%. And Zelman is another big player. They said it's going to depreciate 1.5%. But if you average all the so-called experts, all the leading people in the industry, if you average all their forecasts out, it equals about a 0.1% appreciation for 2023, which again tells me that nobody thinks the market's going to fall out. It's not a 2008 situation. In 2008, mortgage lenders were writing bad loans. The lending standards weren't to par, right? So they were handing out money to people and giving people mortgages that really shouldn't have had that type of mortgage. So you had a huge foreclosure market, which we're not even seeing foreclosures on the market now. You rarely see them. Those have kind of dried up. So basically, again, it's supply and demand. And this sheet, I did these numbers yesterday. So, and it excludes new builds and homes that have been on the market for 100 days plus. There are 2 single-family homes on the market in Littleton right now. 2. You know, in a typical market, let's say pre-2020, so pre-2019, when everything was kind of riding along smoothly, you would probably see 15 to 20 homes on the market at any given time. In Littleton, there are 2, which is astronomical. And then average days on market is, so those homes have been sitting on the market for 18 days, so they sell real quick. There's 1 condo on the market right now, and that's been on the market for 6 days, and I believe I checked earlier, and that one was under agreement, so there might not be any condos on the market right now. I also did the surrounding areas, so Acton and Westford. Again, 6 houses in Acton, 6 houses in Westford. Days on market, 8.5. That Westford number is a little bit skewed with the 30 days on market. There's a couple houses on there that are really not desirable houses. They really need a lot of work, and they've been on the market for 90-something days, so it kind of skews the numbers a little bit. But we'll flip the thing to the next one. So, any questions about the current market? And the thing I like to say is, if you turn on the news and you hear the recession's looming and stuff, the news sells by kind of scaring people, right? It's just not applying to the real estate market. I don't know if Christina, you have any,
Thank you.
insight as to like the looming recession.
Yeah, so that's the biggest question, are we gonna have a recession? So the technical definition of a recession is, they look at a bunch of different economic factors, and the very simplistic is 2 negative quarters of GDP, which is gross domestic production of our country. And we actually did have that in Q2 and Q3 of last year, but they didn't call it technical recession. And the biggest reason why is they went backwards and looked, if we didn't have these supply chain issues, there wouldn't have been this negative GDP, so they kind of pulled that back out. What's happening is the stock market is a leading indicator, which means the stock market typically goes down before a technical recession is called, because stock markets are looking at future earnings of companies. And what we saw last year is indicative of a recession coming. What's also happening when the Fed aggressively raises interest rates, there's really a good chance of a recession. From the different economic sources I've been listening to, looking at, they are predicting a very, very mild recession coming Q3 or Q4 of this year. When they look at that and the reasons why and what they're looking at, everybody said, but look at inflation, look at inflation, look at inflation. Well, yes, we had record high inflation. It's come down for 7 straight months. And 60% of a consumer's spending is on housing costs. And if you have a mortgage and that mortgage is fixed, your mortgage is fixed at 3.5%. It doesn't matter if new mortgages are at 6.5%. So 60% of a consumer's spending is fixed already. Sure, the other 40% isn't, and that's your gas, that's your food, and all those different things. But inflation's not that huge of a drag on a lot of consumers. The other piece, and also 62% of our GDP is on consumption. We are not a manufacturing country right now. We potentially may become one again, but right now we're a service economy. And that's where a lot of the spending is. What we saw coming out of 08, 09 and why we ran into a recession was people lost jobs and people couldn't spend money because they had no money to spend and they had to put expenses on credit cards. Well, we did have a recession in 2020 from COVID, but people were given money through that whole thing. Everybody was getting stimulus checks, right? So people had money. People still have money. We have very high savings rates in this country right now. So people are still spending money. If we're spending money, we're not going to be in a recession. We do anticipate some of that spending is going to slow down, which is why we see a Q3, Q4 recession, but it's not the recession to the magnitude that we saw in 08, 09. It's going to be more similar to what we saw kind of in 2001, 2002, just kind of a minor reset. So again, looking at the numbers Ben was showing about the housing market, the positives we see with these corporations making money, and all of that, it's not one of those, oh my goodness, Chicken Little, the sky's falling. It's just a natural reset of the economy. Like I said, it doesn't go straight up to the sky. It has to take a breather occasionally, so.
Yeah, and to Christina's point, it's, unless the market is somehow flooded, unless everybody decides to put their houses on the market all of a sudden, which we don't see, then you're kind of safe as far as you're still going to get top market.
so top market value. For
And that's where we then work on, sure, you're gonna get top market value for that house, but what do we do with that house, right? If you're not gonna be moving in with a child, we have to look at, okay, but if you wanna buy a condo, again, that condo was on the market for 6 days for $600,000, you're gonna pay top market for this condo. Rents are also at astronomical highs right now also, so that's where we have to do the cost benefit of, if you do sell this house, what are we gonna do on the other side and look at it, right, going
Yep.
forward, so that's the other thing to look at.
And that's the important, that's the main thing we want to drive home with these meetings, is kind of build your team and put things into place now. You may not be ready now, you may not be ready next year, but talk to us and talk to, you know, your team, whoever your team may be. We would all like to be part of your team. But if we're not, start now, start the process now, so you're ready when you are ready to sell. Okay? So.
I just want to thank you guys for coming, and also let you know if you have any questions or concerns, you can email us, call us. We always love questions because it gives us more information, and we become better educated by answering the questions. I want to thank you all for coming, and we have plenty of pizza, so let's enjoy. Thank you very much. Thank you to all my speakers. I think they did a nice job.